All right, guys, welcome back into another props video, touching on the top props here for Monday Night Football. Now, guys, we are going to have two games on this Monday Night Football slate, which is going to be fun to cover, especially prop-wise, because we're not going to be forced into making some bets that we might not typically make if it was like a full slate. I mentioned this. That's the tough part about Thursday Night Football, Sunday Night Football, Monday Night Football is it's typically one game. And we are trying to really predict how the game flow is going to go. And, you know, if you're doing that, sure, you can have some big hits, but most of the time it's difficult to predict game flow. So with two games, I like that a little bit better. But let's take a peek at it. We got the Saints versus Carolina. That's going to be a 39.5 over and under, 3-point spread with the Saints being favored. Then we look at the Browns versus Steelers. This one's also interesting, 38.2. And that's Amari Cooper's out, the receiver number one there for the Browns. And then the Steelers, 2-point dogs. So looking at the injury situation for the Carolina Panthers, DJ Chark is currently questionable. And I said that word. DJ Chark is currently questionable for the Panthers, and that's going to be a big difference maker for this game. And so let's call it why here. We will see that because there's no DJ Chark, we saw the rookie receiver, Jonathan Mingo, get a bunch of work. 87% of the snaps. We saw Terrence Marshall Jr., someone that they liked last year, get 89% snaps, and then Adam Thielen getting 88. Now, when we're looking at the snap counts here, it is interesting to point out that Miles Sanders, and I'll show you guys his usage, it was pretty high. He only played in 57% of the snaps. I mean, he had over like 20 opportunities. It was crazy. Hayden Hurst, who I was pretty high on in retrospect, kind of lucky to get that touchdown last week there with him, 53.2. And that was one of the prop bets that I mentioned last week as well, or maybe I tweeted out. I think I tweeted out. It seems kind of lucky to get, honestly. Sometimes that happens, especially early on. Then real quickly, we'll take a quick peek at the Saints. Looking at the Saints snap counts, not as high as you would really expect. Thomas only played 80. Chris Olave, 78. Jawan Johnson, 75.4. Okay, he is someone that I expect to have a big season, and it's partially due to this. He's actually going to operate, I think, a lot as a Darren Waller-esque type tight end for Derek Carr. We got Jamal Williams, who actually ended up playing 75% of the snaps, and he's going to be one of the better prop bets. I'll show you that here in a second. So definitely some interesting stuff. I do want to point this out as well. Shaheed, guys, only 54% of the snaps, and that was shocking because you watch some of the game flow, or you watch some of the game film, and you think he's a more focal point in the offense just because of how involved he was. He was targeted when he was on the field. That's what that means. And he had some plays kind of designed for him as well when he was on the field. So he might be an interesting player. Let's go ahead and take a peek at the props for that game. So starting out with the Saints. So we look at this here and we can see Jamal Williams for receiving yards. Okay, Vegas is actually favoring the under, but at 9.3. Okay, PrizePicks has the line set at 8.5. Okay, basically a push though. Vegas has that. So the 9-5 edge is giving us at that 8.5 receiving yards is giving us about a 55% chance for that one to hit. That's also because the projection data is favoring him a little bit more. Now, last week I was not high on Jamal Williams as a play. He was kind of chalk. I was kind of shocked by that. Now the usage was there. The matchup was just a difficult matchup going against the Titans. I should say you want to pass the football against the Titans rather than rush the football. That's where their weakness is at. So Jamal Williams, we know, is a good pass catcher out of the backfield, not great, but with Keandre Miller probably still missing this game, like I expect Jamal Williams either way to still get that workload. So to me, this becomes a much better matchup for Jamal Williams to get that over receiving yard. And then from there, we have Shaheed as well. Like, did he earn himself some more playing time? Potentially, but we will see here, guys. Another one where we are getting a push, but we are getting a push at an average line of 38.8. The projection data has it set at 40.5. Okay. Underdog has the line set at 37.5. So there we go. 36.5. That is the lowest projected number that we are getting for Shaheed. So that would be another one for the Saints that we could bet the over on. Now, Derek Carr, will he get 2 passing touchdowns? It's looking like the under is going to be the way to go there. If you guys want to roll with that, you can. Obviously, I'm going to go back to the ODDSJAM Sportsbook tab here. Guys, I like this tab. It's laid out very well. We can see that a lot of the sportsbooks are not liking this game for a high-scoring game. Thus, it makes sense why we would be getting the less than touchdowns there for him, okay? Looking at Michael Thomas, I don't mind this one. 4 for the line for Michael Thomas does seem to be a little bit too low for him. Now, I know the matchup's not the best, but he did have 8 targets in that game, okay? Ended up with 5 receptions. And I shouldn't be saying the matchup is not the best. They played a team last week that's just not going to throw the ball as well as some other teams. So we don't know for sure. Like, we're still in week 2. Like, we don't know stuff for sure yet. I don't want to make anything seem definitive, but I can see why the data kind of likes that one. Now let's go ahead and get to the Carolina Panthers. So, all right, so here we go. Some of these we don't have lines for underdog. That's fine. It's probably because of needing to know the news on DJ Chark. That makes a lot of sense. Okay, that would dictate probably the lines for some of these. We do see Jonathan Mingo. Okay, we are seeing the over is slightly the way to go. Okay, about a 53.5% chance, and so we can already see right here that the edges that we are getting are best for the Saints in this game. But this is one that, let's say we get news that DJ Chark is going to be out, and let's just see here. Let's just make sure he did fully participate Saturday, apparently. Okay, just interesting. We need to definitely get news here. He was kind of the default target for Bryce Young during the preseason until he kind of got banged up, and then it was Adam Thielen. So I'm very interested to see how that plays out. But Jonathan Mingo, we saw how much he played, right? He had 5 targets in that game as well. Sure, we could see Bryce Young struggling, but maybe, I don't know, maybe he really struggles and the Saints maybe blow him out. Obviously, we don't think that's going to happen with Vegas, with the Vegas line, but maybe it's through receptions. We're trying to force something in there. That's what it is. We're not doing that. Just trying to talk myself into it. I didn't like it. So let's move on from the Panthers. We can see right now we're not getting that good of lines, and really just betting on Jonathan Mingo for over receptions, and hopefully we're going to get DJ Chark to sit. I don't like that, right? Okay, so let's move on. Let's get into the next 2 games, or the next 2 teams. So here we go. We got the Cleveland Browns versus the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, this sucks. Both teams are going to be without their receiver number 1. So the biggest question I have is, where are we going to go? Who are we going to look at as replacements for them? So let's start out with the Steelers, because I feel like they are easier to predict rather than the Browns. So with the Steelers, guys, we do know that Allen Robinson came in and filled in for Deontay Johnson, playing 88% of the snaps. And we saw George Pickens also play 88% of the snaps. He made a pretty sick one-handed catch, by the way. George Pickens, that wasn't a touchdown. It was very close to being one. That's kind of George Pickens, though. He never seems to have like elite separation. He's having to make elite catches. Just something to monitor in this game, honestly, because the player that can create separation is the player that I think is going to step up the most. That's Calvin Austin, who played in 55.6% of the snaps. We see Pat Fryermuth, 50% of the snaps. Jaylen Warren played in about 40, and then also Najee Harris only played in 52.4% of the snaps. With Deontay Johnson out, who is they kind of use him as a running back, if that makes sense. Like first down or second down, they need some yards. They'll just let him loose to pick up 4 yards, to get those short yardage plays. I see that more as Calvin Austin, but maybe that just leads to Najee Harris getting a little bit more work in this game. So here we go. I think a lot of people are actually probably going to be looking at the over for George Pickens for receptions. I'm not going to say that's wrong. I'm just going to say the data doesn't like it, but I also want to point this out, guys. The data as a whole, at least for Pickens, is pretty consistent, but as a whole, look at this game. We are not getting that many good projected edges here, and I think that's just due to the snap counts being super spread out. And so to me, I'm probably not touching a lot for the Steelers. Now, we are getting a Calvin Austin prop. I should point that out. 28 is his receiving yards. I would rather, are we getting a receptions prop for him? We are not. Okay, so if we do get that, that's something I might go in on, as a Calvin Austin receptions prop. Like we can see George Pickens is at 3.5. Maybe Austin's is set at 2.5 or 3. I would like that a lot more. And then obviously game flow dependent. I would have probably been on this one a little bit more had Amari Cooper been active. But I think the game's just going to be really close. So I think Najee Harris in some capacity is going to be someone that we want to look at. Honestly, if we had like a rush attempts one, I'd probably be looking at that. But just feels like a stay away. Maybe over rush yards, but that Cleveland defense is pretty good. So let's go ahead and get into Cleveland. And I guess before we get into that, I'll pull up Calvin Austin here. So Calvin Austin, we can see, had a really good game on a limited snap share, and that's kind of why I'm high on this. I've mentioned a bunch already, guys. Like, why did I like Puka Nacua? Well, it was one, he stood out in preseason. They kind of shut him down, which was a tell that they liked him after game 1. And also, like, injury. Like, it vaulted him into playing time. Why did I like Tank Dell in week 2? The exact same situation. Why do I like Demario Douglas tonight? Kind of that. A little bit different role with Devontae Parker being out, because Devontae Parker's more of an X, whereas Demario Douglas more of a Y. But Calvin Austin is those 3 receivers to a T. But I think he can fill in for Deontay Johnson a decent amount. Obviously, when we look at like this DraftKings pricing, they're not valuing him highly there, obviously, with that price tag. So I know that'll be for the DFS video, but he'll be something that we're looking at there. But yeah, I guess I could force in the receiving prop, but just want to call that out. All right, so let's take a peek here just at the snap counts for Cleveland. we will see DPJ playing 89.2% of the snaps. Amari Cooper only played in 62.2 as is. We actually saw Elijah Moore outsnap him. And man, I'm very curious to see actually what they're going to do here. I could see them splitting the workload between like Tillman and David Bell and even Marquise Goodwin, who he actually made some pop plays. And then just having Elijah Moore be more of the slot and then DPJ be kind of their receiver number one. I'm kind of expecting that to happen, but maybe we just see Nick Chubb get a little bit more involved. Let's call this out though. Like only playing about 50% of the snaps where Jerome Ford played in 40. That's a big thing to monitor there. All right, so now getting into the top props here for Cleveland, we do see that Nick Chubb for over 12.5 receiving yards is one of the better ones that we are getting on the slate. That's going to be due to basically Vegas valuing it as a push, but a push at 14.3. We can see that the underdog line has already given us that at 14.5. Projection data though does say about 12.3. So to me, not as much of a lock as maybe some other ones that we have. I do think that Deshaun Watson is probably going to pull the ball and run a little bit more with Amari Cooper out there. He's kind of been looking to do that. He's kind of looked like his old self when he was with the Texans. We can see that PrizePicks there is actually giving us the lowest line out of all of them. So that would be one that I'm actually favoring. I kind of like the narrative of that one as well. But Nick Chubb here, 17 for over rushing attempts. Let's take a peek at that one. So like what's weird, guys, about like Nick Chubb, Derrick Henry is that sure, their snap share might be low, but it doesn't really matter. Like you don't notice during the game when you're watching the film because they're getting a heavy workload, like 22 opportunities in this game. And we see he did get over the receptions in that game as well. So yeah, I think we could be looking at him for maybe receiving yards, rushing attempts. You probably expect them to try to establish the run as well. And then from there, what are our expectations for Elijah Moore? I do expect him to be more involved, but the data doesn't really like him too much there. All right, and then before we get into just the bet of the day, let's see what the ODDSJAM optimizer is pulling in. Remember, if you guys want access to this, the Sportsbook View, link to that's in the description below. Use the promo code 905 to get 25% off your deposit. If you guys use that promo code, that does help me. That kicks back money my way as well. And obviously, if you guys want access to the 905 cheat sheet, that money goes directly to me. That's $10 a month. And not obviously odds update throughout the day. I can't really control that. They can't control that. This is just our best attempt at giving you guys the best props each and every day. And we'll see their stuff is agreeing. You know, Michael Thomas over 4 receptions makes sense. Pratt Freiermuth maybe under, but this is why I like this as well. Tackles and assists for Matthew. We could do over that. Okay, so that might be something we're looking at. It's interesting to look at there. Okay, so now let's go ahead and give you guys a slip. All right, so here's the bet slip with our best bets for the slate as it currently sits. I'm probably, as it sits right now, I might not be attacking it as much as I would like, to be honest with you. That could change based off maybe the DJ Chark news. But these are just the best bets that we are getting available right now. So Michael Thomas, we saw both on the 905 and the ODDSJAM sheets that Michael Thomas looking like a good bet. This one's pulled straight from the ODDSJAM one. That's why I like using it, because we can get more unique ones like that. Deshaun Watson for over rushing yards. We can see that one was being undervalued by PrizePicks. If you guys are disagreeing with me on this one, literally all these next 4 right here, if you're disagreeing with any of those, bet the under there on Underdog then. Okay, remember, we got to go through the mental process as well. If you guys disagree with one of these ones, that's fine. I get it, right? Like I'm just trying to give you guys what I see, what the data sees as the best bets. If you guys are disagreeing with that, you can always make that bet elsewhere on Underdog where we are getting these discrepancies. That's gonna be all for today's slate. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the coverage. If you did, make sure to give a like and subscribe. If you guys want access to those tools, make sure to be clicking the links in the description below. Let's have a good slate, and as always, let's keep cashing.